So let's kind of go over some basic stuff. I'm just going to give you some rudimentary understanding. I'm not going to go too much into the math of it. A lot of artists tend to blend a lot of these styles together because it just looks good instead of focusing too much on like a certain art style being exactly orthographic or exactly top-down oblique or exactly axonometric. Artists tend to go to what looks good, and that can mix these types of graphical projections together. So let's talk about first what kind of graphical projections there are. And the first one's called an orthographic projection. And that just means it's a face of something with no perspective, no foreshortening, anything like that. It has no 1 or 2 point perspective. You notice that it's just flat. So our fantasy battle map style has orthographic stamps where you see this crate, but there's no perspective involved, right? If there was perspective, then you would probably have some kind of point. And then the vanishing point, 1 point perspective or 2 point, that means they would have some perspective to it. Orthographic removes any kind of perspective at all. And this translates better for the viewer because now you can make a world or a battle map or a map using this, and it doesn't too difficult because you don't have to worry about all the various perspectives, vanishing points, and all that stuff. So this translates better like to either a video game or a battle map or whatever. So orthographic is simple, flat, and there is no perspective whatsoever. Fantasy battle maps has that. There's some exceptions with fantasy battle maps about this. There are some stamps in the fantasy battle map style or the other battle map styles where there is some perspective in the stamp because sometimes it's hard to translate some objects or some things as purely orthographic, and adding a little bit of perspective to it can make it easier to translate what that stamp is, right? A crate is an easy example because it's just a cube, right? And so it's easy to translate, but some things are not easy to translate from orthographic, and so you add a little bit of perspective into it. The next one is called top-down oblique, and this one is pretty simple. Top-down oblique uses a top-down perspective, but it shows two faces. It shows the depth and the height. For example, I've taken this crate that you see at the top, and I put two of them, stacked them on top of each other, and all I did was just make the bottom face, or the height part of the stamp, I made it a little bit darker. By using contrast, I make one face look different from the other. Now, the one thing about top-down oblique is that the dimension stays the same. So you'll notice that this side of the crate is exactly the same size and dimensions as the top part of the crate, right? It remains the same. The perspective is the same. All right? So not too complex. With top-down oblique, you're showing the two faces, a front face and a top face, or the height and the depth. Now, top-down oblique looks a little odd, right? Because it seems weird that both the faces are exactly the same size. So top-down oblique isn't something that I will have every single thing that I make inside of the shop will be top-down oblique. I might want to do axonometric, which means adding some foreshadowing to it. So you'll notice that here, when I made this front face, I changed the height just a little bit. And if you notice this top face here, I changed the height quite a bit to show what's called foreshortening. And this makes the crate look a little bit more realistic instead of the two crates at the exact same dimensions, right? So axonometric. Now, when we're making the shop, we might mix a little bit of the both between top-down oblique and axonometric. And it really depends on what it is you're making. For instance, if you're making a table, maybe you want to go with top-down oblique because we have a orthographic projections for our stamps. To have an axonometric desk means that we'd have to do some kind of foreshortening with the stamps themselves. So, in other words, it really depends on what you're making, on which style or which projection you'll be using. Again, the table might be top-down oblique because the stuff I want to put on the table is more orthographic, and I can't do any type of foreshortening outside of width and height. All right, so I'll do a mix of both. So it's important to kind of know the difference. So orthographic, no perspective whatsoever, just a flat one face. Then you have your top-down oblique. Two faces, but the exact same dimensions. Both the depth and the height are the same. axonometric is quite different. The height and the depth are going to change, so there might be some foreshortening, as you can see in that top part of the crate. So I hope this kind of helps to kind of understand some basics about the graphical projections that we're using.